Sweeney here, and today we have on Joe Troyer. Now, he's been in internet marketing and marketing in general since around 2005. He's going to cover a pretty wide range of subjects today, mainly focusing on ways you can increase revenue through things such as shopping cart abandonment, voice broadcasts, actual phone calls, and customer support. Now, he really hit his stride once he started releasing software, the first of which was Analytic Call Tracking Software, or ACT. So he's going to begin by kind of telling us how he got started with ACT and why he even wanted to do the ACT software.
Yeah, for sure. We can definitely talk about that. So first things first, thanks for bringing me on, Sweeney, and thanks for doing such an awesome job. I know everybody's really loving it, so thanks for that, buddy. Yeah, I've been in IM or internet marketing since 2005, kind of dabbled with everything. But at the end of the day, the thing that always worked out best for me for many, many years was consulting. But one of the big disconnects that I had with consulting was I would do services for my clients and I wouldn't be able to directly correlate the results that I actually got for them. Right? You know, when we do stuff online, let's say e-commerce, and we're selling somebody's product, we can say, hey, you know, I just sent you, 20%, or I just sent you this many sales, and that equates to X. You know, you just made X amount of dollars. With offline businesses, that's really, really hard. And the core of my business was really those offline businesses. So call tracking ended up being the solution. But I tried out a ton of solutions, a ton of different services, and they were all, okay. Each system had pluses and minuses, but at the end of the day, I was literally spending a fortune on call tracking for my different clients. Literally getting close to 6 figures a year just on call tracking. So literally just a huge pain for me, a huge sticking point, a huge pain point. So we ended up building our own, and that's how analytic call tracking was born. Basically, my big goal was obviously save some money for us, and I wanted it to be white labeled. I wanted to be the brand. Not some big call tracking vendor that my clients didn't even know who they were. And I wanted to add a bunch of features. Obviously, I'd come up with some ideas on what would really be good for me and what would work for me, and that's really how analytic call tracking was born.
Gotcha. So it was kind of a double of wanting certain features, the gain and the pain of spending around 6 figures a month on this product. And I definitely think there's a disconnect because whether it's GoToWebinar or these other enterprise level softwares, when smaller businesses or marketers try to use them, they weren't really designed for us. They do what we need them to do, but they don't have the things that we would like them to do.
Exactly.
So, with the analytic call tracking, it seemed like a pretty good fit for you to just create it and do it yourself. But what problems did you face when you decided, hey, I want to sell this as well?
Yeah, I mean the cool thing was that it went really, really fast. Basically, we went from concept to, hey, let's get our head developer on it, to actually being production ready in the earliest stage in 45 days, which was pretty crazy. It took me a while to come around that I was actually going to sell it. I had lots of friends saying, hey, man, you got to sell this. My customers would love it, or I want to buy it. And initially, I was just like, no way, no thanks. And eventually, turned around, and it hit a nerve. It was something that everybody really needed because every consultant out there servicing the similar types of businesses was having the same issues as I was.
So in selling it, did you find to differentiate your product, and since it was a software, you'd sold consulting before, and
yep.
Maybe did you sell any other digital products before?
No, that was actually our first digital product. It was a big change. Luckily for me, though, like I said, I kind of struck a nerve. So it kind of took off by accident. Like I had no idea really what it was going to do. We did the first release. I think we sold like 400 or 500 units, something like that, really, really quickly. And I realized that my customers really wanted more than just a call tracking platform. Don't get me wrong, like call tracking platform was the bee's knees, but they wanted to really understand how to use it and like how to actually leverage it. Now that I have this, like what are the best practices and how are you using it and how are other people using it to really leverage it? Now what we focus on primarily is not just building software, but then the training, wrapped around the software to really teach people how to leverage that software and take full advantage of it. And with that little change, we ended up actually doubling the price just by adding in some training, and it converted twice as good by doubling the price and adding in those pieces. And within, I believe, like 90 days, we doubled the price again, and the conversion stayed the same.
And now,
So
did you find when you were selling it, was it people who already knew about, call tracking and wanted a service, or was it also kind of convincing people that hadn't quite heard of it or didn't know they needed it?
I would say that until we got to the second price increase, it was mostly people that had heard of call tracking but weren't really pleased with the vendors that they were currently using. Once we raised the price that second time, we had to do a little bit more education on why they needed call tracking and appeal to people that didn't know that they actually needed this solution.
And I think that can be a big problem with some of the more startup kind of softwares is they don't always understand the training side and that educating people on your product and teaching them why they might use something. And this is a perfect fit because in the beginning people who needed it knew they needed it and they jumped on it. But then you reached a point where people hadn't heard of it but heard it sounds like it might be a good idea, and by having the training it was a much more natural fit to bring them into the product. I know I worked with a different Facebook tool, and one of the things we lacked was really good training on how to use it. And you can imagine what that ended up doing for our conversion rates and our stick rates.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, it's all about just listening to those consumers, right? Because you don't know your user base. You can make assumptions, but you really have to listen to them and understand their scenario. Are they advanced? Are they, brand new? Are they mid-tier? Like, what do they know? What don't they know? And what are they looking for? Because if you don't ask your clients, you're just leaving it up for assumption, and most of the time, it's just not going to work out. We're able to get that great, increase or doubling the price, keeping our conversions basically the same that second time because we really understood our client base and what they needed in order to really take it to the next level.
Now, were there any other, I know you've done a lot of software since then, so have you seen any other kind of takeaways being more on the software side compared to people who only sell digital products? Obviously, for example, the investment time-wise, cost-wise, you said you launched it in 45 days, which is incredible. But
Yep.
most people, you're looking at a couple months potentially.
Yep.
So how have you guys dealt with that or learned from that?
A couple things. I mean, you're asking about like what are the takeaways, with adding the training. I think one of the most important things for anybody thinking about doing any type of software is that you need to be the prototype, like the smallest working version with your concept and with that hook, right? And you need to be there within 60 days. And if you're not, you need to trash the project and move on. Any project that personally for me has taken over 60 days has failed pretty miserably because I either get lost in the project, uninterested, or it just becomes like feature creep central and it just never ends. So that's the big thing. It's just like put that 60-day timeline on it. If you look at analytic call tracking, like when we launched it, it's hilarious if you look at it now. Like the simplicity of that compared to now is absolutely insane. Have a very, very small feature base, but it was able to sell like crazy because it was what people were really looking for. The takeaway on the training side, though, is definitely you need to be packaging all of your software with training. If you're not, your users aren't going to understand it, number one. And that's going to be an issue because they're not really going to have the success that they need, right, or that they're looking for when they buy your product. So they're going to be discontent with your training or with your software then, which is obviously not a good thing. And then it's going to obviously increase your customer support as well. So always, always, always make sure that there's training involved with the software. You're just leaving money on the table, frankly, conversion-wise, and it's just going to cost you a lot of extra time and money versus making more money and not having all those support inquiries.
I was going to say, it almost sounds like the training is such an easy win-win because you're going to increase how much you're making and you're increasing retention.
Yep, and decreasing support.
Yeah, because you're answering a lot of their questions ahead of time.
Exactly.
Built into the training. And I think that's a big part of the prototype kind of model is you're building the product with them, then you're building the training with them. So hopefully by the time you are a little bit more fleshed out or you reach 1,000 users, you already know 98% of the questions that are coming your way.
Exactly. Yep, for sure.
All right, so let's shift gears a little bit, and I know you've spoken to us before about kind of two different tactics or strategies that can add 10 to 20%, which are dealing with shopping cart abandonment and also retargeting.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not going to touch on retargeting too much because I know we're going to be talking a lot about that. So I don't want to, disrupt this conversation. We could go on about retargeting for hours. The big thing I wanted to mention is obviously that you need to be doing it. No matter what you're selling, you need to be using retargeting. And the principle is just basically the more times you get in front of people, the higher chances you're going to convert, right? And you can do this automatically with retargeting. One big thing that I want to point out, though, which I don't really hear anybody talking about, is Facebook retargeting versus display. And so with Perfect Audience, for example, or even with AdRoll, they actually advertise your stuff two different places. All right, it goes out to Facebook, and then it goes out to the display network, which are basically banner advertisements on all these different sites. And in internet marketing in general, like when I sold ACT and when I sell anything, like when we did the data reach launch, like 90% of our orders come from the Facebook retargeting, right? Of all the retargeting that we bring in, like 90% is from Facebook, and only 10% from display. Okay, so like it's almost not even worth doing in display inside of like the IM or internet marketing niche. But when you get outside of internet marketing, it tends to flip-flop. You need to really understand that wherever your users are is where that retargeting is going to work really well, right? So if your users aren't on Facebook, guess what? The retargeting is probably not going to work really well. And my biggest tip is just not to make any assumptions. Don't assume, oh, they're not on Facebook, so I'm not going to try it. Try it both ways, and just understand very, very quickly you're going to need to turn one of them off or adjust the campaigns.
Gotcha. So, I mean, it comes back to that basic principle, and the same thing you should be doing with your social media is kind of find out whether you're mostly, are they on Twitter, are they on Google+, are they on Facebook, are they on YouTube, and spend more of your time there, because that's where your users are, that's where your customers are.
Definitely. Yep.
Now, as far as the shopping cart abandonment, I know this is a big problem with a lot of people, and typically the basic idea is, oh, if you had someone who abandoned in the shopping cart, just throw up a retargeting campaign.
Yeah.
I know you guys have done something a bit more, I don't even want to call it complex, but more old school.
Yep. Yeah, we actually pick up the phone and call people. It's a amazingly crazy idea, right? So we have a multi-tiered strategy, but basically we do voice broadcasts, we do text messages, we do emails. A lot of people do email, but then we also follow up over the phone. And this is easily added 10 to 20% on basically every promotion that we've ever done, from internal offers to affiliates promoting our offers, right? Ben Atkins, for example, when he promoted our last release data reach, we added like 12 or 13% for him using this sequence. And to him, that equated in lots of revenue in his pocket that nobody else was providing for him. So we'd love to go above and beyond for our affiliates and for our customers. The customer relationship and that bond that we build when we reach out to them is crazy. Nobody reaches out and calls their customers anymore in this space. I don't think anybody ever really has, but old school marketing is that you actually call customers back, right? And you follow up with them. And so many times that's just overlooked in this marketplace. We get crazy, comments like, I can't believe you're calling me. Like, nobody's ever called me on the phone before. Or, we'll have problems even in like support where we're having a problem and we can't get to the bottom of the solution, or we can't get to the solution, we'll just pick up the phone and call. And that's done so much for our brand as a whole. And that user's perception of us and our brand, is very different than a typical experience.
Got you. And it's kind of that human touch, and it gets talked about a lot, and it gets forgotten about. And even when it comes to networking, so many of us think just because we can talk to someone in a Facebook group or a Facebook message, but we all know deals get done in person. And it's funny that we think that our networking deals only get done in person, but the buyers, an email is fine. Whereas you guys have easily proven that phone calls have really, really changed it over for you guys. But I'm kind of interested in how'd you guys go about implementing that? Because not a lot of people might be doing phone calls currently.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, abandoned carts are really super simple. Actually, Chris Brisson actually first got me doing this. I think you actually have an interview lined up with him as well. So he'll probably talk about this like a lot deeper. But basically, he showed us how to do this, and we were running a bigger ticket campaign, and we added, gosh, I don't know the number. I think it was literally like something crazy. I think we added like 30K to our bottom line on that promotion because it was big ticket and a lot of people were abandoning the cart. Okay, so all that we did was follow up with people over the phone that basically submitted step 1 of the form, which we just have first name, last name, email, and phone number, and then didn't complete step 2, which is the order form. So we just are looking at the form submits on step 1 versus the completed orders. And all that we do is basically, we use Office Autopilot, and we actually queue up all the calls to go into analytic call tracking. And so basically, once a day or once every couple of days, basically we just log in there and it shows us how many people we need to call and for what campaign. So it makes it super easy on our end. And a lot of people, when I've told them about this, they're like, yeah, that sounds great, but it seems like a lot of work. And what do you say on the phone? Like, I don't want to be some sleazy salesman. And that's the awesome thing is we're not at all. All that we're telling them is that we see that they started placing an order, and we wanted to follow up with them and make sure that they didn't have any questions. And typically the people have a couple of questions, we answer them for them, and we just reinforce like why they went to that landing page, what it is that they were looking for the solution for. Whether it be for traffic or conversion or no matter what it is, we just talk to them about the problem that they're having and show them how our product can solve that for them. And it's not a hard sales pitch at all. And like I said, it's definitely added a ton of revenue to our bottom line.
Well, it makes sense because, I mean, first off, whenever you're reaching out, like the human touch, as I said, and it's also, I don't want to use the word, it feels dirty to say closing the sale, which is kind of weird because, like, that's what you need to do. But it's more just reaching out and going, hey, do you have any questions? Can I help you? And I'm sure there's some people that are like, I just don't want it. You're like, okay, cool. But even those people probably have a much better perception of your brand. And, they might not buy today, but they could be a buyer tomorrow.
Yep, definitely.
Now, it definitely seems like you guys have a focus on customer support. And, I've obviously been in the offices, and I've seen it myself. And, I've seen people on the phones and kind of how you guys set things up. And I know you guys have a monitor set up, and I'm not sure if it's a Geico board, or if it's Office Autopilot, or...
So it was originally set up with Duxboard. So we did that integration, and basically we use Kayako for our support desk. So we have 2 different boards. We have one for Office Autopilot, which is like 90% of all of our sales, and then we use Kayako, which is all of our customer support. So we have 2 boards, one for basically each system. So the customer support one, basically the key things that we have on there are how many overdue tickets. We have how many tickets are open by department. And then on the overdue specifically, we list out who the customer is, what the product is that they purchased, and then basically like how long ago that thread started. So the goal there basically is, when I walk into the office or when I leave the office at the end of the day, a quick glance and I know exactly what's going on in support. I know how many tickets are in there, how many of them are overdue. If we got somebody that's having a problem, if it's somebody's been back and forth with our team for 7 days or something, we're going to reach out to them and close that right on the spot versus them keep going back and forth and getting frustrated.
And do things ever kind of reach you guys where it's like, hey, we need you guys to jump in on this problem, or most of them are handled in the support department?
99% we never touch. Every once in a while somebody will be like really upset, and if it's legitimate, by all means we'll reach out to them. Which kind of brings me like to my next point. One of the things that really has helped us with support is we actually had somebody. They quit their customer support role because they were moving out of town. They continue to freelance for us, but we wanted them actually in office to be doing customer support. So when that person left, we realized that we were kind of hosed. Like we basically had to start from scratch all over again, and we decided right then and there that like we were never going to be in that scenario again. And so what we did was we implemented some systems and processes that really, really helped. And the big thing that helped the most was that anytime a question is asked more than once, we make a knowledge base article for it. And we also make a macro for it. So a macro is my team can basically, somebody's like, how do I install analytic call tracking? We have a macro for that, and it's called How Do I Install Analytic Call Tracking? And it's step-by-step, full, in-depth, like literally holding their hand, and it takes our team a total of, 2 minutes, to look at that and send it out, or 30 seconds. It's really, really fast. And so we're able to bring somebody on board into support, very, very, very quickly.
Got you. And it kind of seems like it makes sense. It's on one of those, if it's asked more than once, it's likely to be asked again. And the time it takes to answer that question compared to the time it takes to answer that question and record the process is, such a minute extra. But then you have it and you can refer to it from then on. I mean, I know we've done that. We do a process, and I think we might have to repeat it. I'll just film a quick video, and that way, moving forward, you don't have to really worry about it again.
It's funny, like I think about that like in everything that I do, but that doesn't mean your staff's going to think about that in everything that they do, right? So in the last year or so, we've put a huge emphasis on that in our business. If you're doing anything more than once, document the process, and when you're done, go to your supervisor with it. And whether that's you, the business owner, or whether that's somebody else, it doesn't matter. Giving somebody else the chance to look over a process for 5 or 10 minutes, they can probably trim out some fat here or there, or we'll know that we'll have something ready to go. So if by chance they get hit by a bus or they don't show up to work one day, somebody else can handle that process. And Ben and I have always thought of our business in that regards. If we were to get sick and couldn't show up for 2 weeks, or we got hit by a bus, like there's got to always be a backup plan. Web 1 can't ever cease to exist because of one of us.
Got you. And I think you have some impressive stats list here for response time.
Yeah, so if you look at like a 24-hour response time, it's about an hour and a half. But if you look at the like 9 hours that we're actually in support, our average response time is just a couple of minutes. So basically, how we run support is basically our team gets in the office at 8 a.m. and they leave at 6 p.m. And basically, support and the phone numbers and everything goes live at 9 and then shuts down at 6. So basically in the morning, first thing is we try to look at what are like the escalated tickets or like the issues that we got to make sure get resolved by the end of the day. Like what are the outstanding stuff from the previous day? And then is there anything that like crept up overnight? So like, did one of our software stop working because Google changed the way that they did something, or something of that nature? And that can happen a lot when you get into the software game. So that's kind of the process for our support team in the morning, is to understand, basically what's left over from yesterday or anything that we need to make sure gets handled today, and then did anything creep up overnight, and then basically they all jump on a meeting with our developers and run through that, and then basically, by the time that's over, it's 9 a.m. and we're live in support. So it's kind of a way for us to get grouped together and everybody be on the same page about what's going on and why.
And so do you guys have, I have some things listed here that I kind of want to run. I'll just throw out to you and you can refer it back. I know you guys do use a live phone number. You guys do use live chat. Do you guys also use, Zendesk or some sort of other software? What are kind of the tools that you guys use besides the
Yeah, so we use Kayako for support. I know quite a few people use Kayako. We really like it. We use them for our support desk, and we also use them for live chat. I talked a little bit earlier about the macros for support and in the ticket system in Kayako, but you can also use those in chat as well. So that's kind of a cool thing that we use. And we just started playing with like the predictive chat. I think is what it's called by Kayako, or it's like auto engagement. So if somebody's on the page for X amount of time, you can set the threshold, and we've been kind of playing with that and seeing what the best spot is for us. But it pops up basically a pop up, and it's the live chat, and it's one of our team members saying, hey, I noticed you've been on the page for a while. If you have any questions, let me know. We're here to help. And that's been absolutely crazy response as well for us. On everything from sales pages to tutorial pages, and actually inside of support on the knowledge base as well. I'd much rather have somebody ask a question in live chat than submit a ticket personally, because we can make sure that the problem gets fixed and resolved much faster. Somebody submits a support ticket, we get to it, let's say 15 minutes later or 10 minutes later, we respond, or even 5 minutes later. By the time they check their email, see where we responded, and they write something back, I mean, it could be hours or it could be a day or two. So we like to get everything like nipped in the butt right away, get it taken care of. So yes, we do the live chat and phone as well. We started taking phone calls about 6 months ago, and we definitely prefer phone or live chat. It just makes sure that we get to the bottom of the problem as quickly as possible. One of the most frequent issues that we find is like people don't give us all the information that we need, right? And we're left like not knowing what they're talking about, or and when we're on the phone or chat with them, obviously we can get all that stuff right away.
It's funny you say that, because I know, with one of the softwares, I had someone, that posted, you probably read it too, and they're like, hey, how can I use this quickly? And I was like, well, what are you doing now? And they're like, hey, how can I use this quickly? And it's like, I don't know what to do, It's kind of like someone asking, hey, how can I become healthier quickly? It's like, well, do you need to lose weight? Do you need to gain weight? Do you need to work out? Do you need help? Like,
yeah.
There's 1,000 different things. And
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys have a very proactive, almost offensive support strategy. And, as you say, nipping it in the bud. And that makes a lot of sense, because if someone sends in a ticket, it's going to take a lot more time for everyone, and the response is going to take more time compared to if you have the live chat set up, you have these phone numbers set up, and you can just attack the problem and take care of it before it grows.
And we encourage our customers to call too. If you have a question, like don't paste it, or don't put it in one of our Facebook groups and bog that down. Like, pick up the phone and call us. We're happy to help you. You see like customer service issues like flare up in like social media. Where like dispute resolution, or somebody didn't get back to me, and we've been guilty of that happening to us in the past. And whether it was our fault or whether it wasn't, a lot of times it was like they didn't get the email that we replied, and it was like so and so support team hasn't gotten back to me, yada yada. And I gotta admit, the biggest thing that has stopped that, or stops people right in their tracks, is like, hey, sorry that happened, but did you call us, or just give us a quick call or hit us up on live chat, we'll help it right now. That just like throws water over the fire. It's done. It will not continue to flare any longer. So that's been a big help for us as well.
That's very awesome. And customer support, it gets looked over, but it is very, very big and very crucial in keeping happy customers and making multiple sales and achieving some of these higher ticket sales.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing too is, at the beginning, when we weren't so active in support and we didn't manage it so well, one of the things that would happen is we would make a mistake, right? One of our team members would make a mistake, and they would just say sorry to the customer and like basically tough luck, see you later. A huge tip is, if your team makes a mistake, give them the room or a way to make it up to the customer. Okay, don't be like the guy with the whip. Give them some room. You know what I mean, to your customer service team to make it right. Get them to take responsibility, because you can lose a customer really, really quickly that way.
Do you have any examples of something your support team has maybe done for a customer that has turned the situation around, or?
Yeah, I mean, we've had customers buy a product, and let's say the product didn't work for them. We got on support with them and we gave them the wrong directions. Like, we didn't understand, but it was like blatant if you look at like the chat history. And the customer comes back like a week later and they're upset, like, hey, it's not working. And you look at it and you're like, okay, well, what happened here? And it's just like blatantly obvious, like, whoever replied to the ticket like just sent the wrong thing. Like, they were using a macro or they didn't understand the response, and they told them to go do something that had no effect on their current issue at hand. And so, we've done things where, we'll just give them credit for the product. We'll refund them and just let them have access to it. We've done things like, thank you cards, or, apology cards, and, we'll send out a postcard and, thank them, for their patience, and tell them we know that it doesn't make up for it, but we're sorry and we appreciate them as a customer. We'll send brownies or something through send out cards. All of that stuff goes, really, really, really far, and I don't see really anybody doing that today.
Gotcha. So, if you make people upset, send brownies.
If you make people upset, take responsibility for it. You know what I mean? It's much cheaper, obviously, to keep a customer than to upset them. By all means, if a customer's out of line and you don't want to keep them, don't keep them. But a lot of times, we upset customers on accident, and we do something, and we're ultimately liable for that, or we messed up. Just take the responsibility and tell them or show them that you care. Prove it to them.
And now, one last question in the customer support range. I know you guys have done launches before.
Yeah.
How do you gear up for a launch? Because obviously your customer support probably gets a lot more slammed. You guys are getting slammed. That was one thing that Nishant mentioned, is he wished he had like 3 to 5 customer support people. And as we said, he's probably too busy putting out fires when that's the kind of time he can be pursuing more opportunities, whether it's releasing more videos, more JVs, and things of that nature.
Yeah,
so
especially
how do you guys go about that?
What we've done is we like to always give our customers the deal. We like to always give our customers a hookup, right? They're our customers. They should be treated differently than like the general public. You know what I mean? If they've been, working with me, or been a customer of ours or of Web1's for 2 years, they should get preferential treatment. So what we do is we do an internal release first, and it's only our customers. And if we're new to a space, we'll pick a partner to do it with, and it's private. It's just their customer base. And that allows us to really control how much damage can be done, right? If you're bringing in a couple hundred customers versus a couple thousand, it gives you the opportunity to make sure that everybody's taken care of and you get any kinks worked out right away. So that's been really, really big for us, is to do some type of internal release if we already have the customer base. Or if we're going into a new market, pick a joint venture partner that we like, we have respect for, and that we know will bring us some great customers. And go partner with them for the first promotion, and get those systems and processes, and frequently ask questions and all the macros and stuff in the knowledge base, but use them to kind of to build that up and give them a better deal because of it.
Makes a lot of sense. A good soft launch, kind of private release. You get some data, get some feedback, and then you're ready to bring it out to the masses. Have you guys, but still keeping it in the same vein, because I can see where that probably does stop a lot of the more major release problems. But have you had any examples? I'm sure you have at least one of where you've had a launch and something went wrong and how you guys fixed it, or what you learned from it.
Definitely. On the last release, Data Reach, Facebook changed their UI for their where you create an app. So basically, overnight, in the middle of the release, with Ben Atkins, who was our partner on that release, we released it to his customers first. We're kind of new to the Facebook space as far as products go. I mean, we've been advertising on Facebook for a really long time, but nobody knows that. Nobody cares, right? So if we would have just released it to our customer base, it probably wouldn't have went very well. So we partnered up with Ben because Ben has a lot of customers in that area, and he's very well respected there. So we partnered with Ben, and he did the release. Halfway through the release, Facebook started rolling out this update, and it was all basically UI-wise, but there were buttons, different locations, and like you had to click like in the app settings for the URL. There's like this plus button now, and it's like add domain or add app or something like that. And so basically, our entire documentation was basically like flushed down the toilet. So we had this big user manual that was like step-by-step how to set it up, and then step-by-step how to use it, and the user manual was basically just garbage in the middle of the launch. And so luckily, Atkins sold quite a few copies, but luckily he didn't sell more, and we were able to jump on that issue right away and kind of squash that fire before it raged out of control.
So did you guys actually stop selling it until you had the problem fixed, or you just were able to fix it quick enough?
We were able to fix it basically within like 5 hours of us knowing about it. We had a brand new piece of documentation all redone with all the new stuff. So basically when people logged in, they saw 2 different versions because Facebook was like doing, one of their weird little rollouts where not everybody had it at once, right? Like they typically do. So, some people had version A and some people had version B, the new one. And so basically they had to make the choice, which one they had.
Got you. I have a couple more questions, partially with the just hiring. So I'm interested to know, with your customer support guys, what do they do in idle time?
Yep. Okay, I thought you were going to ask me.
Yeah, well, I was going to, but they weren't really, because, well, and it kind of segues into the next question, is that, like, I know we talked before about kind of hiring people that have different, a multitude of tasks, jack of all trades type. So
Yep.
That's where I could see where, if you hire a support guy who's also good at these other things, that it can kind of connect. And like, it was something I was actually giving advice to a meditation type center. And I was saying, listen, you have this support desk. You only have 2 clients every hour. I'm like, this guy's probably sitting there 40 minutes of the day, and he can be on Facebook, liking pictures or responding to posts more. And, you can be using his idle time more aggressively. Yep. So I was interested in, with this.
Our customer support people, Ryan and Adi right now, are absolutely fantastic. The 2 best people that we have ever had in support. The most knowledgeable and the most helpful, and just like, good human beings. Like, people want to talk to them because they're just nice guys. So in their idle time, in their downtime, they are going through our Facebook group and answering questions, right? So it's just an extension of more customer service is what I have them focus on. So going through all of our Facebook groups, we have like 5 or 6 Facebook groups now because of all of our different products. So they're always going through there and making sure that people are being taken care of. They're reaching out to all the overdue people over the phone. So any ticket that's been overdue and in there more than a couple of days, they're reaching out on the phone and getting those closed, bringing them to resolution so that the people, again, can have that awesome experience with us, and we can close down the ticket and keep moving. And then they also work on the phone follow-ups as well. So our customer support people also do the phone follow-up from the shopping cart abandons. And if they still have extra time, then we'll do welcome calls to our programs as well.
You mean welcome calls in the sense of just like a, hey,
yeah,
buying?
Yeah, we'll call them up and say welcome to the program, and ask them if they have any like direct questions right away, and then we'll drop in and tell them like, hey, here's where support is, here's the hours, and here's my extension. You can reach me there, if you need anything, and they just welcome them to the program. And again, people are like, wait, what? Like, seriously? So that one doesn't happen as much as I'd like it to, just because that's like the last thing that they do, if they still have time left in the day.
Gotcha. Yeah, I actually have a good friend of mine that does video email software, and it's kind of one of those extensions of the human touch, because a lot of people are comfortable sending a video, but not everyone's comfortable doing the phone call. So he does a similar process of whenever someone jumps on, he'll send them a quick 10 to 20-second video. Hey, welcome for joining, and it's an interesting, very personalized touch. Now, yeah. as far as trying to hire people that have, kind of more jack of all trade, or has a few different skill sets, because especially in the internet marketing space, it's funny when people are like, do you know how to design a website? I'm like, no, but I can set one up, and there's a lot of different things you can do, but you're not an expert in. So how do you go about hiring those kind of people and training those kind of people?
I think that's a really loaded question.
It is.
But to break it down, I mean, for customer support specifically, we need a basic tech knowledge. So how do you unzip stuff? How do you upload stuff to cPanel? What's FTP? How do you use WordPress? We need that one-on-one skill set foundation. And then the only other thing that we're really looking for is the attention to detail is huge, and then just their attitude. Are they bubbly on the phone, and are they just a happy person? Because if they're not, they should never be in customer support, right? Because they're dealing with people that are a lot of times upset because something isn't working. They're not having the experience that they're hoping that they should be having, right? So I mean, you got to combat that.
Happy.
Yeah, you got to be happy, or otherwise you're never going to turn that conversation around.
Gotcha. And
that's the big thing for support.
Last question is, because I know a lot of these people are in-house, and I'm actually not sure. Are your developers in-house or no?
Yeah, so our head developer is in-house. So what we found, we used to try to do everything like offshore, and even like when it wasn't working so well just offshore, we would have people in the U.S. too, but they wouldn't be in-house. So what would happen is like we'd have like one little small bug or one little issue would pop up, right? And like we'd be in the middle of a launch or whatever, and the turnaround time would be horrible. Whenever you outsource something and somebody's not in-house, those key fixes that have to happen like this, they don't happen very quickly. And your quality control really isn't there. So our senior developer, our head programmer, Vinny, is in-house, and basically he has quality control and like the brains behind a lot of the software. He ensures that basically everything goes off without a hitch, and if something does happen, he makes sure that it gets taken care of right away so that our end customer, again, never has that bad experience with us.
So is it mainly just the head developer, or he also has his...
So we have a whole team of developers, actually a couple of teams, but basically what typically happens is a team will work on a project and take it through completion. And then basically we got to figure out then like the last couple of details. We got to figure out like basically like licensing and payment integration, and then basically we do a quality control like office run through basically where the whole team will run through the product from start to finish and basically get out any last kinks or bugs. And then basically the head developer, Vinny, will do a quality control as well to ensure that he doesn't see anything that could potentially, kind of jump up and bite us in the ass.
Gotcha. So it's almost just having someone in charge of that department to an extent, like a head developer who's also the developing manager.
Exactly. It's funny because Vinny's not a manager.
Mm-hmm.
But just the quality control that he brings to the table is like the big key.
Gotcha. And there's certain things that I'm sure he knows to look for that you guys probably don't. It's kind of a struggle when you are sending it off to these different teams, and you hope they're doing their best work, but you never know, and even they miss things.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it a lot. Thank you for coming on. I mean, obviously, if you guys have any questions about today's talk, Joe's pretty active. And
Definitely.
feel free to send them our way, and we'll definitely take care of them. I mean, he just said there's a phone number you can call, so there you go.
Pick up the phone and call us, 561-841-1832. When's the last time somebody dropped a phone number on a Google Hangout?
I was about to say, I'm like, is this a real phone number? Because I don't even... I almost want an extra phone number that I can just start dropping places.
Analytic call tracking, baby. We'll hook you up.
There you go. All right. Thanks a lot, Joe.
Thanks, Winnie. Appreciate it, buddy. Take it easy, guys.